Hi guys, welcome again we've been saying that our interview is coming. Now this is the day we have the interview here with our guest. So today in our interview we're going to focus on this subject of vaccine nationalism. So we have our guest, so let us have a know who's our guest today.
So thank you for inviting me. I'm William Onono, and I hope we'll discuss this together.
Sure, so welcome guys. So our interview is vaccine nationalism. So as we begin this discussion, we want to make you aware of what we are talking about. Actually, the definition of what vaccine nationalism means. So William, what's vaccine nationalism? What does it entail?
Okay, I think recently we've had many theories on what vaccine nationalism is, and there are new terms that have come with since we had the coronavirus pandemic.
Sure.
That is from December 2019. We've started interacting with many words, and I think most of the among the word that has come up into play is the word vaccine nationalism, but we have other words that were not frequently used before, quarantine, all those words were not in the public domain before Corona came.
So they're calling it a new normal.
They are calling it new normal, thank you.
Yeah.
So vaccine nationalism is also a word that has recently come into play more so in the period of 2020 up to recently. So vaccine nationalism is where we have major powers, all the strong powers, having the rights, all buying all the vaccines, all pre-ordering all the vaccines, a large number of them, in that the weak nations, all the developing nations are not, able to get the vaccines, they need to use. So all the major nations are acquiring vaccines, and I think we'll give examples later.
Sure. So we're talking about prioritizing. So we have vaccines that have been developed to help eradicate the virus. And the problem, as William says, is the vaccines are going to be prioritized to the rich and powerful nations first, then the poor countries or nations later. So it is called nationalism of vaccines. Vaccines are being nationalized, as we can say. So we want to discuss what's the problem with vaccine nationalism. What is the effects? How dangerous it is? It is, I think, in the 21st century, where we have globalization. The world has been made a small village. So the effect we're having here today in Kenya, it can be felt in India and elsewhere in another part of the world. So what's the problem with this concept of vaccine nationalism? So what do you think are the effects of this problem of vaccine nationalism, or this idea of vaccine nationalism?
Okay, I'd like us to conceptualize this, and if you'll allow, we are going to give practical examples that the audience is able to know what are we really talking about. So a vaccine nationalism is something, I believe it has been there more so starting from the modern history. And when I talk of modern history, I'm talking of the history of 1989 going forward. All you can tie it to 1979. And if you like watching documentaries, we have had writers, we have had people uploading documentaries to prove these ideas that, the modern age, the modern history started in 1979. And if you can allow me to give reference, if I can give reference to the audience, they can go and watch that on their own time. If you go to documentary watch, I think about a year or 2 years ago, there was a documentary that was uploaded in 2 parts. The Big Bang that created today's world, and they'll dig down to show us how 1989 history created the history of this world, and how we can feel, the effects of that year, even in 2021. So around 1980s, I know you are aware, we had HIV/AIDS.
Sure.
So when we had HIV/AIDS, there was an attempt to develop a vaccine, that was going to help the world. And among the nations, I believe that were most affected by HIV/AIDS is Africa.
Yeah.
You know, we have
African
statistics.
nations.
Yeah, you can take
Yeah, there's
statistics.
statistics,
Yeah, there are statistics to prove that the developing nations in Africa were really affected by the HIV/AIDS.
Yeah.
And essentially, what happens is that the countries in the West, and I'm not trying to, make this look bad, but I want us to be pragmatic.
Yeah.
Pragmatically, the nations from the West secured, all the vaccines, and Africa was not prioritized. The last priority was to Africa. So what happened is, the disease was able to affect African nations more than it did to the West, because what they did is they secured all the doses, and Africa was not prioritized. So because of this nationalism, we call it watu wetu in Kiswahili. So it's about our people.
Yes.
Our American,
Our people first.
That was the idea, and that is why African countries were affected by HIV/AIDS. So going fast forward to the coronavirus, we are 40 years later, we are in the same situation as we had it 40 years back. And what is happening is, when people started developing vaccines, countries like Britain, for example, they were able to, for those who like sport, they were able to bet. So they placed multiple bets, and they were like, Pfizer, BioNTech, is developing a vaccine. Before even it was proved to be effective, they had already, placed their order. And what they were doing essentially, if it succeeds,
We'll have a larger share.
we'll have a larger share. They did do it, I think 5 different companies. I was watching CNN the other day, and I think this was what Farid Zakaria was saying. They placed, orders with 5 different companies, and Foreign Affairs had an article on the same. They placed an order with Pfizer, BioNTech, with Moderna, with Oxford, with Johnson Johnson. So they already have pre-orders on this vaccine.
Even before they're manufactured.
Even before they were manufactured, all confirmed to be effective. So when this vaccine started, showing result, for example, I think the most effective, I know you will agree with me on this, the most effective vaccine so far is Moderna and Pfizer BioNTech.
Yeah.
So they already had a pre-order, so they'll have a large share. And if I can add another example, Canada has secured vaccines for their 38.5 million population. If you can check, they have already secured vaccines for their population enough, and even this population will be fed, and another vaccine will remain probably for storage in case of anything. It's extra vaccine. So though I saw the PM saying they secured it to donate to other developing nations, I have my reservations. Now another danger that comes with this is that Canada, Japan, those countries account for less than 1%
of the coronavirus
cases, but they already have vaccines which are more than what they require.
So a quick search on the details of the the vaccine nationalism. This is CNN. They say most people in low-income countries will be waiting until 2024 for COVID-19 vaccination. So low-income countries, people there will be waiting until 2024 for the vaccinations of corona. So still you can see the effects of this problem of nationalizing the vaccine. Again, a quick one before you make your comments. They say here, low and middle income countries will only be able to cover about 1 out of 5. So 1 out of 5 over the next year. So when we get to 2022, these poor and middle income countries will have given 1 out of 5 person the vaccine. So how dangerous is that? Like, if you don't give vaccines to these poor countries or middle class countries, what does it have an effect again to the other countries who obtain a larger share of these vaccines?
Yeah, and that is the point. I think that is the next point I was going to.
Yes.
So what happens is now, Canada has vaccinated their population, and probably Britain, and as we are seeing Israel is doing. I think about 69% of the Israel population is already vaccinated. But what happens if other developed nations are not going to get the vaccine? Now this is the danger that is going to arise. You know, a virus mutates.
Sure, it has been mutating.
It has been
variants
mutating.
already.
We
South
have
Africa.
the UK variant, the South Africa variant, and then I think
Those are the most notorious.
yeah, we are having the Brazil variant, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
If you check with now this news, all Vox
Sure.
news, you know.
Vox,
Yeah, no, not Vox, Vox.
Vox,
Yeah. So I think we are having the Brazilian variant. What happens is you can feed your population, they'll take vaccines, but you know the virus will mutate
In those other
in
nations.
those other nations that has not got covered,
Yes.
you know, and this mutated virus will get back to your population, and probably as per now, Dr. Fauci was saying the vaccines are not yet proved that they will prevent coronavirus. We are not sure about that for now. What we are sure is they boost your immunity and they lessen the damages, you know, they lessen the damages of the virus, but we have not yet proved until up to this point that they are going to make you immune. So if it returns, the new variant gets to your country, you know, these vaccines will be like there is nothing really you have achieved, because the mutated virus will be back, and these vaccines, they may not be effective to this mutated variant.
Sure. So another problem, another issue that people are raising is simple, that it is the problem of these poor nations. Why are they poor? Why they order these vaccines? So is it a problem? Should they be left to die because they're lazy, they don't work hard? So because of their poor governance, people argue, for example in Africa, because of their poor governance, people are saying it's okay, because if they had money, they could be ordering the vaccines. So is it that, should we approach it that way, or is there a problem with that?
No, I think that is a wrong approach to issues. I mean, and I think the reasons why we have bodies like the United Nations,
Yes.
you know, WHO, that look after all countries, is because we know that not every country has the privilege. We don't have same privileges. And you know, when we are talking of developing nations, you know, most of them, all the resources go to the West. I mean, technically, I mean, even if you follow the history of these nations, we have countries that should be richer more than the countries, all the finest countries in the West. Like when we talk of Democratic Republic of Congo, going by the minerals it has, the natural resources it has, is the richest country in the world. You know, when we go to Venezuela has the world's largest oil reserves. But what happens? Immediately you get oil, the United States comes, Russia comes, you know, you cannot enjoy your oil reserves. And I was seeing when we had President Maduro
In Venezuela.
Venezuela was among the finest nation. You know, it had among the largest GDP thing in the Middle East, all second largest.
Libya is another example.
Libya is
another last issue I want us to deal with is people are again saying these rich countries, they have put a lot of resources in the idea of developing vaccines. So actually people are saying if they put a lot of resources there, when the vaccines come out, they should be the first one to benefit. Otherwise, what did the Africa participate in the formation of vaccine? So what do you say to that as we come to close?
No, I know that has been said, and partly, you know, the reason it's giving is part of being patriotic to your country. But we need to know how to live together. You know, we need to know how to live together. And as the common saying has been going, not from us necessarily, but from the medical, you know, experts, we are not safe until all of us are safe.
True.
So they can invest in their vaccines, they'll vaccinate their population, but without every country getting the vaccines, getting a fair share of the vaccines, it will only elongate the period the pandemic is going to go. If we are talking of a developed country getting, you know, a vaccine in 2024, it does not help. It's only making the pandemic go a longer period. So I don't think that argument is counterproductive, I can say. So I think we need to know how we live together, and yeah, if we embrace one another, we are going to conquer the we are going to conquer the pandemic very fast. Another point I wanted to make, and that is where we have these big countries. I think more than 180 countries, the developed country, have come together to form Gavi, and this is the Global Alliance of Vaccines. And what this essentially is going to do, they are going to secure vaccines and give them in a cheaper price to developed nations. I think that is where it was right. The United States under Donald Trump had refused to join. I'm not sure if they joined, but I think President Biden was talking about the United States joining, because these people understand why every country,
how the world should live together.
How the world should live together, how we should embrace one another.
So in short, you're saying vaccines should be globalized. I mean, it should be a united world effort to fight this problem together, not in isolation.
Yeah, you can't fight a pandemic. That is why it's a pandemic.
Sure.
It's a pandemic because it's global. A global issue is given a global
solution
approach.
Sure.
If it was an epidemic, probably in your country alone, you can approach it locally. But I feel sad when we have, these countries, big countries, thinking local. The very essence of, globalism is we need to embrace one another. We need to live together as brothers. So I'm not sure this concept of, localizing everything is accurate.
Sure. So your final thoughts as we bring this to a close?
Yeah, so the final thought is, the vaccines have not yet proven to be 100% effective. I think the most effective vaccines is Moderna and Pfizer, which are about 94-95% effective. So I still encourage every country to still do their masks. The vaccines have not yet proven to give us immunity that you will not get the coronavirus again. So let's continue wearing masks, and above all, I think let's continue to listen to science. We have scientists out there who are educating us on every step. So all the precautions still should be taken, even as we await vaccines. And also, taking a vaccine is not about you. It's about others. It's about your friends. It's about your family. So even those who think that these vaccines are meant to reduce population, it could urge us to think otherwise. It's not about you, it's about your friends, it's about your family. That is what we are protecting.
Thank you so much. So guys, it's a big interview here, so we continue bringing you such interviews to see young, vibrant youth in the whole world, how they have productive thoughts and how we need to engage in these discussions that are affecting us worldwide. So as the final thoughts, what I picked from his is the interview here is simple. We have a global problem, and a global problem should be approached globally. It's a global solution that can deal with a global problem. So thank you so much for viewing, and we encourage you to subscribe, to watch, and to share, and to like the video. So soon we're coming with more interviews on current issues topics. Thank you.